Next on Worcester News Tonight, a former Southbridge teacher appears in court accused of sending nude photos of himself to a student. And a dispute over who owns this bridge lands a couple of central Massachusetts men in trouble with the law. Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kayla Mamalak. Those stories in a moment. We begin tonight with the Worcester School Committee moving to appoint an interim successor to Superintendent Dr. Melinda Boone. She resigned last week to take a job in Norfolk, Virginia. The debate to appoint an interim superintendent focused on two candidates, veteran South High School Principal Maureen Beninda and Chief Academic Officer Dr. Marco Rodriguez. The school committee voted 4-3 to name Rodriguez to the post. The interim position is expected to last anywhere from 5 to 7 months. Well, a 78-year-old man from Webster was in court Wednesday after trying to block traffic on a public bridge. He says the bridge belongs to him, and this isn't his first run-in with the officers. Drivers on Cedar Street may see these two conflicting signs near the Webster-Douglas town line. One reads road open while the other says private property. Webster resident Michael Finnemore owns the adjacent property and says the road belongs to him. The 78-year-old was arrested Wednesday after trying to block traffic.
He's under the mistaken belief that he owns the bridge, and the bridge has been a public way for hundreds of years.
The dispute is more than 4 years old. A court hearing in 2011 ended in a unanimous jury ruling the bridge is open to the public. But Finnemore is now appealing. While his court date is not until next summer, Douglas police found Finnemore and friend Christopher Everett setting up a fence blocking the bridge Wednesday.
We gave him ample opportunity to remove the fence, and he refused to do it. And because it was a public safety issue and he was being disorderly, he was taken into custody.
Both Finnemore and Everett pleaded not guilty and were released on personal recognizance. He did not want to speak on camera Thursday, but says his biggest concern is the liability he has if an accident takes place on the Cedar Street Bridge. Town Administrator Michael Guzinski says the real concern should be the public safety of residents if Cedar Street is blocked.
Enough traffic goes through there that if it were to be closed to public traffic, it would create a number of difficulties, not just from a convenience standpoint, from a public safety standpoint for our emergency vehicles to go through there, that our buses go through there. It would cause a major problem for the town.
Well, a former teacher from Southbridge Middle High School pleaded not guilty today for allegedly sending obscene photos of himself to one of his students. Joseph Zuniga turned 22 today, and he faced a judge in Dudley District Court. Olivia Lemon was there and has our story.
Joseph Zuniga appears in Dudley District Court Thursday. Prosecutors say the 22-year-old former Southbridge High School teacher sent nude pictures of himself to a student. Police say Zuniga used Facebook on 2 separate occasions.
The student said that, in fact, the defendant had sent a photo to him, a new photo, when he was 16 years old of last year. He did indicate the same photo was sent to him again right before school started this year.
Some of them we could clearly see his face attached to the image, so we knew it was the teacher.
Police say the student never responded to the messages or told an adult. A school resource officer learned about the pictures through rumors. Zuniga taught English to non-English speaking students.
I had 5 children that went through the Southbridge school system. There's no problems at all like this, and if I had them now, I would be up in arms.
Southbridge residents say they're concerned for parents who have students in the school district.
I do feel that maybe these people should be checked out quite a bit more before they are hired.
I just believe they have to really police this up a little bit, kind of keep an eye on all this stuff and do more background checks maybe.
Zuniga also worked at the Worcester State University affiliate, the Latino Education Institute. In a statement, the school says he was employed 6 to 10 hours per week working with adults in an English as a second language program. Upon learning of the allegations against him yesterday, we suspended his employment pending further investigation.
I think this teacher should be taken out of any possibility of teaching ever again at any school or working with any children.
Olivia Lemon, Worcester News Tonight.
Well, neither Zuniga or his family had any comment after his arraignment today. And in an apparent unrelated move, Southbridge's superintendent of schools is resigning. He was appointed less than a month ago. The chairman of the town school committee says the superintendent is stepping down for health reasons. The latest now on a deadly shooting back in August. Today, one of the men accused of killing Shane Bennett pleads not guilty. Jeffrey Johnson was held without bail at his arraignment in Superior Court today. The 33-year-old is charged with first-degree murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Police say in mid-August, Johnson and two other men killed 24-year-old Shane Bennett during a robbery. The two other suspects were indicted last month. A group of neighbors and community leaders met this afternoon. They say they want to take back the community after a summer of violence. The group met at the Hawley Street basketball court to discuss a community event to be held on October 24th. The event will have a cookout and basketball tournaments in order to strengthen community ties. This comes after several shootings this August, one resulting in a death.
Together as a group of neighbors and leaders in the community to really take back an important place for our young people here in the neighborhood. We've suffered a couple summers of kind of challenging around criminal activity, so it's important that we really make sure that this is a safe and a good place for our kids. So
to keep this a safe place, to keep it a place where kids can go after school. You know, there aren't a lot of opportunities around here, but they can come to this place, play some basketball with their friends, you know, between 3 and 6 or whenever it gets dark, and be safe. And that's what we want to see continue.
The event will also have volunteers cleaning up the area. And the governor of Massachusetts is taking a step towards tackling a growing epidemic. Today, Charlie Baker announced new legislation aimed at dealing with the state's opioid crisis. Allison King has more.
I was very sick. I never thought I'd do heroin.
Andrea Kudis hardly fits the stereotypical description of a junkie, but the 33-year-old from Arlington is becoming more and more the face of opioid addiction, which for Kudis all began with a month-long OxyContin prescription following back surgery.
Once the money ran out and the prescriptions weren't given to me anymore, I looked for heroin. I had no choice.
Kudis' story is a familiar one to Adam Sissio, clinical director of CSS Women's Renewal at the Dimmock Treatment Center in Boston.
They're coming in with the same story. It's, I started using opioids because I had a 30 to 90-day prescription of a benzodiazepine, of an opioid, and it continues on from there.
So Sissio, like many in the addicted community, is happy to hear that Governor Charlie Baker has filed legislation to combat the epidemic.
When you think about the fact that we've tripled the number of people in the past 4 years who've died of an opioid overdose, in the short term, the goal here has to be to disrupt the trend.
The legislation would limit doctors to prescribing no more than a 72-hour supply of opioids to first-time patients. It would create a stronger prescription monitoring program, increase education, and give hospitals the power to force treatment on abusers. Kudis, drug-free for almost 2 years, hopes the legislation will help others, even as it's come too late for so many.
Many friends have died. My best friend died about 3 months ago.
The Massachusetts Medical Society has weighed in on the legislation. The organization says it has deep concerns about sections of the bill, like the 72-hour limitation of pain medication, as it could impede the effective pain management, it says, of patients. For Worcester News Tonight, I'm Allison King.
Well, the teenager accused of murdering his teacher will be moved to Worcester Recovery Center and Hospital to continue competency evaluations. Philip Chism was initially found to be fit for trial in the rape and murder of his Danvers High School math teacher, Colleen Ritzer. But yesterday, Chism refused to enter the court and would not cooperate with a psychologist. The 17-year-old will be at the hospital for at least 20 days. Today, President Obama outlined his plan for American troops in Afghanistan. It includes more than 5,000 troops staying in the country past his presidency. This number is much larger than the president's initial target of 1,000 troops.
I believe this mission is vital to our national security interests in preventing terrorist attacks against our citizens and our nation.
Well, Congressman Jim McGovern is not backing the president's announcement. In a statement, he says, in part, our mission in Afghanistan lacks the clarity that the American people and our brave men and women in uniform deserve. I am disappointed that after 14 years of war, we are talking about continuing our military presence there instead of finding the political solution that is so desperately needed. Changing gears a bit, an emergency drill at the Wachusett Reservoir today. Agencies from around the state are training on how to protect the state's second largest reservoir. Patricia Nicholas got an inside look at Thursday's drill.
Imagine if this train carrying oil across the Wachusett Reservoir derailed. It's a scenario agencies from across the state practiced on Thursday.
Some crews put some peat moss into the Thomas Basin, which is here on the far western end of the reservoir, and watched how it moved and simulated movement of a contaminant across the reservoir.
For the past 6 months, state and federal agencies have been planning what to do if the water were to become contaminated from a train derailment. The DCR's Jonathan Yo says the contaminant, which in this case was oil, would take anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks to travel to the intake.
We always want to be prepared in case of an emergency. Trains have had problems around North America, Canada, and the United States recently, especially as we move more crude oil around the U.S.
The drill was a collaborative effort between the Department of Environmental Protection, Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, Pan Am Railways, South Wachusett Regional Emergency Planning Committee, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. They used orange booms to contain in Thursday's drill.
As we put up the booms, we're going to do testing, live testing, to see what's going on with water quality all across the reservoir. So even though it takes weeks for the water to get to the intake, we want to know exactly what's going on with water quality.
Yo says a train has never derailed and contaminated the reservoir, but the agencies want to make sure they are able to respond if it were to happen. At the moment, there is one contaminant that they are dealing with and have been successful in responding to for the past 25 years.
Well, actually, our biggest threat to the reservoir in terms of water quality is our gulls and bring bacteria near the intakes.
Patricia Nicholas, Worcester News Tonight.
Thanks, Patricia. And an inspirational speech at Mechanics Hall Thursday focused on mental health. Kevin Hines attempted to take his own life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge 15 years ago. Today, he addressed a crowd about his struggles with mental illness and how to receive proper help. Hines has traveled around the world to speak about his troubles and is the author of the book Cracked, Not Broken. Organizers of the event say Hines' speech can serve as an inspiration to those struggling with mental illness.
Our audience tonight, I'm certain that there are several people who are living with mental illness or behavioral disorder, and I'm sure that they'll find inspiration. Again, it's through Kevin's resiliency in the face of all that he's faced and overcome in his lifetime, to be able to say that mental illness doesn't define who I am. It's an illness, and we can all still achieve great things in life.
In his speech, Kevin explains the harsh realities of his internal struggles.
Dark and dismal tunnel vision, and I saw at the end of it no light. I had no hope. Now I know today that the hope was there. It was there. I just didn't walk far enough.
Tonight's event is the 9th annual fundraiser for the Shine Initiative and has raised $500,000 since then.